Welcome back, everybody, to the Little Less Fear podcast, the Dr. Lino Show. Today, I would love to welcome Eliora. Eliora is a pen name chosen with the co author of the book, Drink from the Well, because it means God is my light. This book and all the work of Eliora is inspired by the divine. The work of Eliora is about waking up to seeing how much our fear is impacting how we feel, think, and behave. Waking up to seeing how much our fear negatively affects our interactions with those we love and like. Waking up to seeing our fears. These fears are always present, even when we ignore them or repress them. With some simple tools, we can learn to see their presence in our lives. Once we recognize our fears, they no longer have the power to control us. Our feelings, thoughts, and actions, in essence, our lives. Welcome, Eliora, to a Little Less Fear podcast. Perfect topic. We're in alignment here. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Thank you, thank you. So, this is an incredible topic, and this is the title of the podcast, A Little Less Fear. And we're going to be talking about fears, and it's also the title of my book, A Little Less Fear. And my experience with fear was that every time I had a fear and I overcame the fear, it's as if I gained a piece of my soul back. It's as if I got a little stronger. I felt a little more powerful. Every time I overcame a fear, I felt that I could do more, that there was less blockages. But there are some underlying fears that continue throughout my day, and I'm sure that's like that for all listeners, viewers, and watchers. What can you say about actually, you know what? Before we get into what you can say about continuous fears, tell us about your journey. What brought you to up to where you are at today with your book? What brought you there?
Okay, so I am a person who was very controlled by my emotions, especially my fear. It was almost as if I was living in a prison, and I started to see a long time ago, probably like 15 years ago. I started to understand that when I meditated and I dropped in deep inside of myself that there was this peaceful, quiet, loving part of who I was that was completely different than my exterior, than all those negative emotions, my fear, my sadness, my feeling used or angry. And it was like a gift dropping down and in and connecting with that part of myself. And the more I connected with, I called it my deepest wisdom, the more I understood that there was something much bigger and greater than this person who I had been living my life as. Um, and it's funny, but I, um, I started listening. I started listening to that part of myself, my deepest wisdom, and asking questions. And I learned that if I could just ask a question and then focus on I started learning that if I focused on my exhale, that it allowed me to drop even deeper inside of myself and to let go, that I'd get answers. It was the quiet voice within me. And by focusing on my exhale, it kept my thinking mind busy. So I had chance to start to hear what was actually going on inside of me and to be guided by it. And it's just been a stepwise process of learning to listen to myself and to be guided from that quiet voice that has led me to writing the book. It's quite amazing. It's taken me probably 14 years from beginning
Wow,
to
that's
end to
beautiful.
get to that place.
That's
And each
incredible.
step of the way, I have understood more and more about what my negative emotions are the cause of, what happens when I'm filled with fear, how I respond, and how I respond to other people when they're filled with fear. It's just been a step by step process, really slow and gentle. It's I have learned that drawing is my way in. Um, I get a pad of paper, I get colored pencils, and I listen what colors to I'm guided to use, what shapes to draw. And at the end of drawing, I it takes me to a new place of understanding. It sounds a little wacky,
Not at all. I
but
think
it's through the
that sounds beautiful. It sounds like harmony to me.
it feels like harmony to me. It feels like all of a sudden having this solid image in front of me allows me to take in and understand at a deeper level some aspect of universal wisdom that was beyond my understanding before. So, one of the first things I understood that just blew my mind
Hmm.
was that all of our negative emotions, every single one of them, is the result of fear. Fear is the trigger for every negative emotion we feel. And so when I understood that, it allowed me to take it back. So if I was sad or angry or depressed or jealous or feeling used, that if I acknowledge, wow, this fear, this anger, I'm feeling angry because I'm afraid. I'm feeling sad because I'm afraid. I'm feeling lonely because I'm afraid. And doing that helped dissipate those negative emotions. It gave me an understanding that allowed me to see beyond those negative emotions to what was truly going on. And fear happens inside of us almost all the time. We all have three common fears: the fear that we're going to be judged and rejected, the
Right.
fear we're not going to get what we think we want and need, and the fear we're going to lose something. And we could be losing something external from who we are, like a relationship or feeling safe or a house or a job. Or it could be we're going to lose how we see, know, and define ourselves, the person we've been all this time, which is the person that we have learned to be, not the person we were born to be. Because we all enter the world as a soul, as a light giving, loving, connected person. And then as we grow up, we learned that we need to cope with all the fear surrounding us in our families and society by taking on some sort of, oh God, dysfunctional ways and patterns and ways of being, by emoting, by having negative emotions and destructive behaviors. The coping skills we develop as small children to cope with fear are the person that we often think that we have become.
So true.
When you think when I thought of who I used to be, I was impatient, I was judgmental, I was very, very, very competitive and motivated. Every one of those aspects is fear driven.
So
None of them
even
are the person I was
competition.
born to be.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Eliora.
yeah,
So
go.
even
No,
competition is fear based.
yeah. Well, because the deal is, when you are, what's driving the competition? That someone's going to be better than you, that you're going to lose seeing yourself maybe as the best. Maybe you'll lose being the best. Maybe you won't get what you think you want and need, which is the admiration and the appreciation from other people, or the prize, right? You can
Right.
see each one of those. Maybe someone's going to judge you as less than or a failure if you're not the best. You
What
can
of
see how just that one concept
it
triggers all
makes
those
sense.
fears.
There's so much clarity with that. I can see. I'm trying to see because I'm. How? What about being competitive with yourself?
Well, you don't need to be competitive with yourself.
I guess the thought that
Competition is
I
about judging.
I guess the thought that I was thinking is, let's say that I want to go rock climbing, and I'm in a
Hmm.
way that's a way of competing with my body. Can I do this? Can I climb this tall, hefty rock?
But we could reframe it. We need to reframe it. It's not a
Okay,
competition with your body.
okay,
It's a challenge. It's right. It's
okay.
you learning and growing and attaining skills, right? It's not a
Right.
competition.
I
It's you
love
learning
that.
and growing and expanding.
I
Can you
love
see the
that.
difference? You can feel it. Yeah,
Yeah, I can feel the
exactly.
difference, definitely. Can we go back to?
So, yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, no, go ahead.
I wanted to go back to the start of this conversation where and I definitely want to
Sure.
continue. I want to continue exactly what we're talking about. Fear, being is a fear of judgment and how competition is fear. But I would definitely want to come back to this. But one thing I have in the back of my head right now, when we first started this conversation, you were talking about how you started by asking your deepest wisdom
Hmm.
questions, and that you would
Yeah.
exhale and letting go, you were guided by it. How did you know, or how did you, yes, how did you know, and how did you realize that these questions that you were being asked once you were exhaled and more relaxed was the direction to take?
So it's so interesting. I'm so glad you asked me. My body. So our bodies give us so much information. When we are filled with fear, when we are thinking,
Mm-hmm.
right, there is a tension in our body. If you were just to close your eyes for a moment
Mm-hmm.
and notice how much tension you're feeling in your body on a scale from 1 to 10. 1 is completely calm and relaxed, and 10 is so tense that it's hard to be in your body. You're so agitated. And you're looking in your jaw. It's physical tension, your jaw. You're looking in your throat. You're checking in your chest for like how hard is it to take a deep breath. You're looking in your stomach for churning. How about your shoulders? How about your back? How much tension are you holding in your body?
Mm-hmm.
It's a physical manifestation of your fear. So, when you are receiving an answer, so when you focus on your exhale, you're doing two things.
Mm-hmm.
You're focusing on the sensation of breathing out, which is putting you in your body. Whenever you focus on sensation,
Mm-hmm.
you're not in your head, you're completely connected to your body. And when
Okay.
you're focusing on the exhale, you're energetically releasing and letting go. So it's this double, it's winning in two different ways. Winning by being in your body, winning by letting go of what you're holding on to. And it allows you to go deeper, feel more relaxed and more connected. It's really profound.
I
So
love
when you
this.
inhale, you're just inhaling a normal inhale, just a boring normal inhale. And when you exhale, you're focusing 100% of your attention on the sensations of breathing out, the sound of the air, the movement of the air as it moves out of your nose or mouth, the movement of your chest down and in. It's a sensory experience. And
That's
as
beautiful.
and when you're doing that, you can ask yourself a question. So I could ask myself, you could ask yourself a silly question. What is it I'm being guided to eat for lunch? That's where I started. I started with silly ones, light ones. Or, am I being guided to go for a walk right now? Whatever. Or how am I feeling at this moment?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we don't even know how we feel. I
That's
ask
so
the
true.
question, and then I focus on my exhale, dropping down and in. And when it comes from deepest wisdom, it feels like a pop. All of a sudden, there's an answer. It's very different than thinking, where you think the answer. And
Mm-hmm.
then you can check in with your body. Because if it's coming from your thinking mind, it creates tension. You can feel there's an increased amount of stress in your body, of tightness in your body, if it's coming from your thinking mind. And if it's coming from deepest wisdom, it's almost like a release. Your body just goes, ah, yes, that's right. That's true. And your
So
body, so I rely on my body 24/7 to speak to me. My body is my primary source of information.
I love this. Absolutely. This is beautiful. So then, so basically, the thinking mind, since it creates tension when you're thinking, there's more of like a push dynamic. You're pushing to something, and that's why it's causing tension and resistance. Whereas the deepest wisdom, the reason why there's a release is because you're letting a flow state come through to you rather than being pushed and pulled towards a specific thought, correct?
That's an interesting way of putting it. I never thought of it that way. A lot of times when we get answers from thinking mind, they're related to fear. They're related to competition or how we think we need to be or um, who we think we must be or meeting other people's expectations or whatever. That's thinking mind.
Okay.
And when we connect with deepest wisdom, we're dropping down below all of that and connecting with our that quiet, peaceful, loving part of who we are. And it's that quiet, connected part of ourselves that's answering. And it's a truth. So we can just relax into it, knowing it's a truth.
Eliora, how can somebody, if they're going through something disheartening, whether somebody just passed away or they're going through a breakup or they lost their job or they're going through a divorce, when let's hypothetically say that there is somebody that does meditate or they do pray and they are able to get into this state of
Mm-hmm,
deepest wisdom, but these other fears start to creep up during the day from the pain that they're going
mm-hmm.
through. How can somebody do that in their everyday life when they don't have time to sit down at the moment and get into their breathing meditative state? Let's say they're driving or they're in
Oh,
traffic or there's a lot of kids around or they're at a party and these feelings start showing up. How can somebody get themselves into this peaceful state?
okay. So in the book that I wrote, well, I wrote with someone else and with the divine called Drink from the Well, there's tools. And the tools are about how to understand when you're afraid, how to attribute your reaction to fear, how to see your fears and let them go, and how to not take on the fears and darkness of others. That's basically the tools in the book. Also, I talk about how to connect with deepest wisdom and how to connect with your light, with that soul. So let's say I'm upset and okay. So when you're afraid,
Mm-hmm.
the fear triggers what I call a dark response. It triggers negative emotions,
Yeah.
it triggers negative thoughts, and it triggers negative hurtful behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
And they're hurtful to you or hurtful to someone else. So that's your dark response to fear. And what I discovered, and it was like it blew my mind. I couldn't it was so simple and so beautiful and so powerful that when we attribute our darkness, our negative thoughts, emotions, or behaviors back to the fear that's causing it, we no longer need to express the darkness anymore. So I know that's going to sound crazy, but
Uh-huh.
let's say I'm okay. I really recently hurt my back very badly,
Okay.
and I would be laying on the floor, and I could feel these waves of self pity coming over
Sure.
me, and I
Right.
could also feel myself going into worst case scenario. Oh my god, I'm never going to walk again. Oh my gosh, and
Right.
I'm like, okay. So there's three sentences I say. I say, this is me, and I'm filled with fear. This is me. I'm overwhelmed with fear. And this is me. I'm expressing my fear by feeling sorry for myself. I'm expressing my fear by going to worst case scenario. I'm expressing my fear by feeling really angry that I made this mistake, really angry with my body. And as I do that, my self pity goes away. My worst case scenario, I made it into a verb. Worst case scenarioing goes away. And my anger diminishes because I'm going back to the actual source of all that negativity, which is the fear. As soon as you see that it attributed back to the fear, that darkness no longer needs to be expressed in
What
that
if
way at that moment in time.
what if
Just breathe. Just breathe for a second and think.
Mhm.
I just need you to take that in because that's really profound, isn't it?
It is. You know what's profound about
You,
that is that if you're actually saying and you're stating this is me, this is I'm overwhelmed with fear. I'm expressing my fear by going to the worst case scenario. When you're stating that out loud, it's validating that it does exist. It's happening at that moment, but you're also
yeah.
not holding on to it. You're letting it go by verbalizing it or just saying it or even if you say it in your head, correct?
No, okay. So all of my tools you have to say out loud
Oh, you have.
because
Well,
when
what
you
if
say
somebody
them
doesn't
out
have a
loud,
voice?
you can, like a voice, like they're mute or they don't have
Yeah,
a
like I
voice
have
in.
friends that are deaf, for example.
Oh, okay. But the fact is, that's very interesting. I've never thought about that because I find that the vibration takes it, making a sound, making a noise,
Yeah.
or making a vibration helps take it from just being a thinking process to a
Mhm,
physical process.
mhm,
If that makes you can understand. So even if you are making a noise as you think it,
mhm,
even if you're making a vibration,
mhm,
you're feeling that vibration. You might be hearing it, you might be feeling it in your
mhm,
body,
mhm,
and then you're associating it with that
mhm.
particular idea that this is me filled with fear, this is me overwhelmed with that fear, and this is me expressing that fear. So it becomes not just a thinking process, but a whole body experience. You're thinking it, you're hearing it, you're saying it, or you're feeling the vibration of it in your body. Okay.
Okay.
And what you're doing is you're acknowledging, yes, this is what's going on. And it's not just acknowledging it. I can say, I'm angry. That does nothing for me.
Right.
But if I say, I am expressing my fear by feeling angry,
Right.
it's making a connection within me with the anger and the original fear, the fear that's causing it. And it's that connection that allows you to let go of the anger.
That
If you
makes
were
sense.
just to try it right now
Hmm.
and just say, this is me filled with fear.
This is me
This
filled with
is me
fear.
overwhelmed. This is me overwhelmed with fear.
This is me overwhelmed in fear.
This is me expressing that fear
This is me expressing that fear.
by feeling sad.
I'm feeling sad.
Okay. What else? How else are you expressing your fear? By feeling lonely.
I'm feeling lonely.
Yeah. What are you noticing is happening in you as you acknowledge all the ways you're expressing your fear?
There's some calmness to it.
Yes, that's the deal.
I guess there was
That's the
I'm
experience.
gonna say one thing that there was a fear when you were saying this before I actually did the exercise, and the fear is, what if I spiral? What if saying this out loud, I start to cry a lot, and
No,
then I can't stop
you,
crying, and then I start to think
no,
other things.
because what happens is as soon as you attribute your darkness to fear, it neutralizes,
Hmm.
it loses its intensity, and it goes back to the fear that's causing it all.
Hmm.
You're because we go through life, we don't even see all the fear that is consuming us, that's controlling us, that's directing everything we do.
Hmm.
But if you notice how often do you feel negative emotions in your day?
All the time.
I used to feel them like constantly. I don't
Yeah.
know about you.
Yeah, all the time.
Or I was thinking all the time, how often are you judging? How often are you focusing on what's bad and wrong? How
Yeah,
often
all
are
the
you
time.
beating yourself up or being mean to yourself or someone else?
Right.
That's you expressing your fear. That's telling you how much fear is in you at that moment in time and is controlling your behavior, your thoughts, your feelings. It's
That's
just letting you know how often
fascinating.
it's present.
It is. And so the
Yeah.
more you do this, the less fear dominates your life.
Well, that's the first step. So I call that attributing my darkness to fear, and that gives you breathing space. So
Mhm.
all that darkness isn't controlling you. You can be like, okay, whew. Then the second step is, what's the situation that's triggering the fear? Perhaps, let's say, you had a fight with your friend.
Uh-huh.
What about that is triggering the fear? So, what are you afraid? How are you afraid you're going to be judged
Right.
in that situation by, or what are you afraid you're not going to get that you think you want and need? Right? To
Right.
maybe to feel loved or to feel connected or to have someone to hang out with and have a good time with. Or what are you afraid you're going to lose? Maybe the relationship. Maybe you're afraid you're going to lose seeing yourself as a good person or a good friend. By
Right.
actually taking a moment and understanding what is it you're actually afraid of in that situation, how you're afraid of being judged and who you're afraid of being judged by, what you're afraid you're not going to get that you think you want and need, or what you're afraid you're going to lose, maybe a sense of belonging, right?
Right.
Maybe, maybe then, and seeing those fears, just labeling them, saying them out loud, they go from being these big controlling monsters because fear is an unusual emotion because fear comes with lots of physical manifestations. When you feel fear, you get the adrenaline rush, right? Your
Yes.
heart starts to pound, you start to sweat. It becomes
Oh yeah.
much bigger and more powerful in you because of all the physical manifestations at the same time. And when you go through these fears and just notice them, you're allowing yourself just to realize it's just a thought. It's not some big, scary, terrible thing. It's
Right.
just a thought. It's just an emotion. If I told you about, my God, I had the worst day, I was 10 minutes late for a meeting, when I'm thinking about this fear, this experience, my body feels terrible. When you're hearing me talk about it, it's like, well, yeah, she was late for a meeting, big deal,
Right.
right? Because you're not experiencing the physical as like I am. You're just thinking about it as, well, yeah, she was late. The
Exactly.
same thing happens for you when you do that for yourself, when you see your fears, when you take the time to understand what the situation is and what you're actually afraid of with each one of those fears with respect to that situation. You say them out loud, you breathe, and you let yourself sit with it. And it goes from being big and controlling to neutral and allows you to move on without carrying the burden of that fear any longer inside of you.
So I have this question.
Yeah,
There's like EFT tapping and muscle,
yeah, sure.
yeah, muscle testing and stuff. With
Hmm.
this is more in the mind rather than doing physical things to yourself to release fears. Do they both work in the same way?
No, they don't. So I'm an acupuncturist by training and a
Oh,
Chinese
excellent.
medical herbalist. So
Okay,
I'm also an energy healer. I got a lot of hats that I wear.
great.
Um, so so EFT is just releasing the stress
Mhm.
around something, releasing it, the energy block, right?
Right.
That's associated with it. Seeing the fear and just taking the time to look at it
Uh-huh.
actually is allowing you to release your the connection, the power that this particular um, idea and belief and response has on your thinking. It's just, I don't, just a second, would I say it's as good? No, for me, I tap. I've learned how to tap a long time ago. And tapping
Uh-huh.
helps. Tapping for me is like attributing my darkness to fear. It helps relieve it for the moment. It helps open it up, helps me feel better. But it doesn't get down to the nitty gritty of what's truly going on inside of me. For me,
S-
unless you
Yeah.
are really good at tapping and understanding deep down inside, really getting in there.
Mm.
And most people can't.
Right, 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 right.
Um, the approach that I have
Uh-huh.
is guided. It's in the book and it gives you the three fears. And it says okay, what's the situation? And who are you afraid is going to judge you in this situation? What are you afraid you're not going to get that you think you want and need? And it's
Mhm.
just about listening to your deepest wisdom, which is always helpful, and asking, what is it I'm afraid I'm not going to get that I think I want and need if I break up, if I have no longer have this person as my friend?
Mhm.
Breathing and noticing what's coming up and just sitting with it for a moment and feeling the release. Your body is going to speak to you because when you nail it, when you identify what's truly making you afraid, you'll feel it in your body. You'll feel the release. You'll feel it draining away and you'll feel the neutrality, the release of the tension. And you know you're on your path. It's constant reinforcement of you never have to guess because your body's always telling you you're on the right path. You're doing the right work. This is helping because you can feel it inside of you.
And so this is actually, and I can feel how it could actually be more impactful than doing like self affirmations, correct?
Oh, yeah. Your self affirmations are lovely. I do them myself because they sort of get you thinking positively. But
Mm-hmm.
the deal is, you have to deal with the darkness and you have to deal with the fear. It's there.
Right, it's still
And
there.
it's still there. And so I went through my life, the first part of my life, never actually ever seeing it, just trying to focus on the positive. Yes, yes, it will go away. Do my gratitudes, my self affirmation. The fear was still there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really exciting to me at this point in my life because I don't see my fear or my darkness as bad. I see it as an opportunity to do some more work on myself to go even higher.
I love
Every
that.
time I'm triggered to feel fear, I'm like, yes, let's go. Let's figure this out and let it go and move on.
I love how you said that fear is
So
an
there's no
opportunity to go
judgment.
higher and let go and move on.
Yeah. Yep. There's no judgment. It's all because being afraid is human. It's called
Right.
normal.
Right.
And it doesn't have to control our lives.
That's true. It doesn't. So
The
let's talk
deal is
more.
for it to
Yeah,
no, go ahead.
tell us more about your book. Tell us more about the process. You said that it took 14 years to write. How is it divided, and what would you say is the biggest takeaway?
Oh wow. Big questions.
I mean, that
Okay.
is a big question.
So
Yeah, 14 years. Wow.
so the book is divided. I start out with I talk about how we're born. If you think about a small child or baby,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can see all their lights. Why we love to be around them. They're small children are so open and excited and
Yeah,
connected, right?
they are.
And that's us in our light. And then I talk about how we learn to protect ourselves by creating subconscious beliefs. We learn these beliefs from our parents, from society, from traumas that we experience. And these beliefs are in our subconscious, so we're not even aware of them. but they take the form of like, to be safe, I must be the person my mother wants, needs, and expects me to be. Or to be safe, I must always be in control. Or to be safe, I must be invisible. Or they can take the form of, I'm stupid. I don't deserve to be loved. Those are the trauma beliefs.
Yes.
And you can see as a child grows up, they take on these subconscious beliefs whose whole purpose is to protect us and to help us try to feel safe when we are afraid. There are coping mechanisms to try to keep us safe so that we feel less fear. And when we do feel fear, we can survive it. We know how to deal with it. Um, and so I talk about that's the whole first part of the book. I talk about how we learn. This is one of the things I love, that there's four patterns that are possible that we could develop or learn, and how we respond to the fear that we're not enough, that we're worthless.
Mhm.
We and we have one, and we learn them from someone important to us as a child. The first is that best of the best.
Mhm.
When we're afraid that we're worthless, we need to convince ourselves and everyone else that we're the best. That's one group of people. Second group of people is the wallflower. When we're afraid that we're worthless, we need to try to just become invisible and not seen it by anyone because we're convinced it's true. These people that sort of shut down and disappear when they're afraid they're worthless. The third group of people is the Mr. or Ms. Right. These people, when they're afraid they're worthless or not enough, need to know more, need to study more, need to become the expert. And then the fourth group is fake it till you make it. These group of people, when they're afraid that they're not enough,
Mhm.
need to pretend to be the person they should be. And so they're constantly pretending to be someone that they're not.
So true.
And every one of us has one of them that we go to as a way that we cope with our fear that every human being has that we're not enough. And it's very interesting because once you start to understand and look out at the world, you can see it playing out. When I watch TV shows, I'm like, oh yeah, yep, definitely a fake it till you make it. Oh yeah, definitely a
Yeah.
wallflower. You can see it play, and it helps you understand that when let's say someone is putting you down, needing to be superior, needing to do the best, I now understand that this person is really afraid in that moment, that they're
So
worthless,
true.
that this is
Right.
a way they're responding to their fear.
And then you can
Another
respond with
way that we,
compassion in that case.
that's right, exactly. Yeah. Or that we learn either when there's a mistake to blame ourselves or to blame out. We're blame inners or blame outers. And we learn
Yes.
it from our families or someone important to us. And that's one way we respond to our fear of a mistake being made. And then I get into the book about starting to see your fears. Well, if you're feeling a negative emotion, there it is. If you're focusing on the negative, then you're afraid. If you're behaving in a hurtful, destructive way, then you're afraid. So let's say you're labeling or judging someone, or let's say you're beating yourself up, or self sabotaging, or let's say you're yelling or being impatient. Those are all you expressing your fear with these destructive behavior. So it's starting to see, wow, look how present this fear is in my life. Oh my God, it's with me all the time. It was like a mind blowing experience to understand how often I was afraid, like almost like constantly.
Right. Wow, that
And
makes
when you're
sense.
not afraid, it's I'm sure everyone has a handful, maybe 10 moments in their life when they are truly feeling full of joy, connection, happiness
Yeah.
beyond the normal. Just really, really one of those magical moments, right?
Right.
That's you connected to your light. And think of how often that happens compared to how often you are tense or sad or angry. And I decided I didn't want to spend my life living filled with fear and feeling negative emotions. I
Yeah, neither
wanted to
do I.
connect more to my light. Yeah, that was a driving force. I was done. And so I spent the next few years creating the tools and understanding the tools to help me do that. The first was attributing my darkness to fear. So I had some breathing space. So I wasn't completely overwhelmed with anger or depression um, or beating myself up. I had some space. Okay, whew. Those are the darkness is not consuming me right now. Now I can understand what is it, the fear that's getting in my way? What's the fear that's controlling me in this moment? And then I also understood that it was really amazing that I didn't have to take on other people's fear and darkness. So, like if someone
Right.
comes up to you and starts yelling at you, you respond normally by feeling really bad inside, or feeling afraid, or feeling angry, right? Or
Right.
feeling used or misused. That's you taking on that other person's fear and darkness. And I understood you don't have to, it's a choice. And it's really, really simple. It's a tool, and you say it out loud. And what you say is, this is that person and perhaps the role they're playing. Let's say this is my husband, and he in that this moment is filled with fear. And this is my husband, and he's overwhelmed with fear.
Hmm.
And this is my husband, and he's expressing that fear by, let's I don't know what, let's imagine what he might be doing. He might be yelling at me, rolling his eyes, walking away. This My husband doesn't do any of those things, but I'm just giving you
Sure.
some examples.
Right.
He does other things. But the fact is, when we can see that their darkness, that their destructive, hurtful ways they're behaving, their emotions, the mean things they're saying, are the result of them being afraid, it gives us two things. It gives us an understanding that this is their stuff and not ours,
Right.
and it gives us compassion.
Absolutely. That's
And
beautiful. It's
when we
wonderful.
do that, we don't have to take it on, and it gives us space.
And it
And
also
it's sort
releases
of,
it from our body.
that's correct completely. And it releases all that fear and darkness from our psyches. You can go back in time, you can remember a moment when someone did something to you, let's say when you were young,
Yeah.
and it really negatively impacted you. Maybe let's say someone called you stupid when you were young. Then you can create a light shield with that person in that moment. This is that person filled with fear. This is that person overwhelmed with fear. And this is that person expressing their fear by labeling me, by calling me stupid, by being impatient with me. This is the way they are expressing their fear. And in that moment, when you do that, you are no longer taking on their fear and making it your truth. You're no longer carrying it with you as a burden forward through your life. You're letting it go and realizing it's their stuff and it has absolutely nothing to do with you.
I love that. How can somebody, let's say that I'm in a state of compassion. Let's say that I realize
Yeah.
that somebody is in a lot of fear, and then I start to
Hmm.
realize and I start to feel bad or sad for them.
Nope. That's
Isn't that a
okay.
fear again?
No. Okay. So compassion is different. So what you're talking about, bad and sad, is fear.
Right.
Compassion is an understanding that this is the truth of where they are right now. Okay. And when you're feeling compassion, you have choices. You can, it doesn't mean being a doormat. You could set a loving boundary. You can say, I really want to hear what you have to say, or I want to be with you. And I can't, no, I can't be with you when you're yelling at me. I can't hear you. And it feels really bad to me. So I'm just going to like take some space and I'll come back later and maybe we can talk about it. I've done that before with people. Or you can, just say, basically, if let's say someone's yelling at you and you have compassion, you can see that they're filled with fear. You can say, I can see you're really upset. And, do you want to take some time? Is there something I could do to help you? The deal is, if you respond with, I call it light, with compassion,
Hmm.
you are allowing the darkness just to stay at the level it's at. Let's say that instead of responding with light, you respond with your own darkness. Let's say they yell at you and you get mad and you yell back.
Right.
Now they're responding to your darkness by becoming even more upset. It's a
So true.
downward spiral the two of you are on together.
Oh no.
Correct? You've seen that. Haven't you seen that in your
Absolutely.
life?
Oh yeah, many times. And
But
then that's
wouldn't it
how
be nice
the
to
whole
nip it in the bud?
mirroring starts to happen.
So, but if you with this, you nip it in the bud and you keep it from downward spiraling.
Hmm. Yes, I can see that.
Y- right?
I can
And
see
you
that.
understand, and you don't have to stick around. You don't have to tolerate the behavior, but you
Right.
have some compassion that this is where it's coming from.
Hmm. What if they're what about a different type of fear? Let's say that somebody lacks the maturity of clear communication. I don't even know if I want to use the word maturity or just the awareness of clear
Aware,
communication.
okay.
And so you try to communicate with them, whether it's friends, cousins, relationship, whoever it is, and they cannot communicate back with you, and in turn, you just don't hear from them. And so some fears
Uh-huh.
start to
So,
raise up and come about, and then
okay.
and somebody's able to then say, okay, be compassionate and say they don't have this skill or the tools
Yeah, but the
to,
fact is we need to use a tool. Thinking it is not going to get you there.
right.
You have to use the tool because the tool takes it out of your thinking mind and makes it a whole body experience.
Mm-hmm,
So in that case, I would say, this is that person filled with fear.
mm-hmm,
This is that person overwhelmed with fear. And this is that person expressing their fear by shutting down, by not communicating, by feeling resistant to open up, by
mm-hmm.
feeling afraid to open up and share, by pushing me away, by disappearing, right?
Right.
This is the way they are expressing their fear. Can you see how that shifts everything?
I can. And then how does somebody go away? Let's say that somebody has starts to feel a bit of the rescue mode. Like, well, what if I reach out a different way? Or what if is that then fear?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
right. Because you're trying to fix it, right? You can feel
Mm-hmm.
it. If you, okay, stop for a moment, breathe, and
Yeah.
notice the tension level in your body as you think about rescue mode. What are you, how
Yeah.
much tension are you feeling in your body?
Oh yeah, there's a
It's
lot of
pretty high,
tension.
isn't it?
Yeah.
There we go. There you got your answer, don't you? You don't even have to ask me. You know, it's fear.
Right. That's interesting, huh?
And the deal is with these light shields, you're making the connection in your brain that when this person, let's say, disappears and pushes me away, it's because they're afraid. You don't have to make that light shield again. You have made it. And that person can push you away and you will not respond with fear. It's
Right.
not like you have to. So it might be that you need to modify it. Let's say the next time you're with that person, you're like, oh, wow, okay, this is that person filled with fear. This is that person overwhelmed with fear. And this is that person expressing their fear
Mm-hmm.
by becoming very quiet,
Mm-hmm.
by having a blank look on their face as if they're not even connecting with me. Because
Right.
what you're doing is you're identifying everything that person's doing that's triggering fear in you, that's upsetting you.
So
That's
true.
the deal. That's how you make a light shield.
So
And
once
so
you
you're
see
just
that it's
constantly
triggering you,
modifying it.
if something is triggering
Yeah.
you, that's because it's the fear in them or both.
Well, yeah. Well, it's triggering, it's their fear is triggering fear in you. And I tell people, go to the bathroom, go get a drink of
Right.
water, say it out loud. You don't have to say it really loud. You can just mumble it, but say it and take a moment and take some space, get some space, clear it. You can also do it retroactively, even after the moment,
Mm-hmm.
and clear it. And when you do, it gives you the space to see that person for who they truly are. They're a person who's afraid, and this is how they're expressing it. They're not a bad person. They're not an evil person. They are an afraid person. And we
True.
all know what it's like to feel afraid.
Mm-hmm. I love this,
And
Eliora.
the deal
This is
is,
amazing.
oh, I'm so glad. And there's like a million different ways to express your fear, isn't there? And we get all caught up in all the different millions of different ways. Oh my goodness, this person yells and this person goes quiet and this person puts me down. That's unimportant. What's important is recognizing that when we're expressing any negativity, negative emotions, negative thoughts, negative behaviors, that it's because we're afraid and attributing that darkness to fear. Gosh, that's fear. This is darkness, that's fear. That's their fear, this is my fear. And owning your own fear and letting other people own their fear and their own darkness
Mm-hmm.
leads to healthy relationships, leads to relationships with boundaries, leads to relationships that don't go into downward spirals where people just feel worse and worse around each other and create even more fear and destructiveness when they're with each other.
Hmm.
A healthy relationship needs people who can own their own stuff. They see that what's theirs and what's the other person's and does their own work.
How can one give the benefit of the doubt that the other person will do their own work and let just by letting them have their own fears? How can we give them the benefit of that doubt?
Ah, so the deal is, as when you're not taking on their fears, when you're not responding to their fear with your
Yep.
fear, you're letting them own it.
Okay.
So I get lots of people coming in, couples. I get like one person in a couple coming in, and they're working with me. And next thing you know, the other person is changing
Hmm.
because they have no choice. Being in a relationship is like a dance, right?
Right.
And let's say you're doing a waltz with this person, and suddenly you stop waltzing.
Hmm.
Then the other person has to change the way they are interacting with you as well.
Right. Oh my goodness. This is all so clear. I love this. This is incredible. So then, going back to your book, you have tools in how to navigate the fears. And what's the biggest takeaway if somebody were to pick up your book and just go through the entire thing? What do you think somebody's, or I guess, what's your personal takeaway first?
What's my big that we as humans are primed to feel fear. That's normal.
Mm.
And I love the word normal because
Yeah.
there's no judgment with it. Okay.
Right.
And fear does not need to be in control. That's the biggest takeaway. We have learned, society, we learn from our parents, we learn from their parents through history that fear needs to be in control,
Right.
that fear needs to be triggering negative emotions, negative thoughts, and negative behaviors. And it's not true. It's a lie. There is a way to live your life without fear being in control. And I am living proof of that because I was probably the most afraid person you have ever met in your life. And I'm very rarely afraid now. And when I am afraid, I deal with it and I work through it and I move on and I just keep doing my work.
I love this. I love this, and I can't wait to practice all of this. Everything that I learned. I took like 3 pages of notes here. Eliora, this has been such a fascinating topic and conversation, and I'm just so blessed by your light and your energy and all of your wisdom. How can our viewers, our watchers, and our listeners find your book, Drink from the Well, or get a hold of you if they need to?
Okay, so my book, you can order it from Barnes and Noble or Amazon, or my favorite is you can order it from your local bookstore.
Okay.
Um, I have a website called eliorasjourney.com. It's ELIORAS journey.com. And it's created like a labyrinth where you can go in and explore different ways of thinking about your life, um, and going on a journey. Each time you go in, it's a different journey depending on the questions you feel connected to and want to move through. My book is present. I have a description of the book and connection. What is it called? Links to the different places you can order it from. I have a place where you can download like the first part of the book for free, just if you want to check it out.
Okay.
Um, and I've got a webmaster who's going to create a page so people can just email me send me a link, a connection with their email address if they'd like to get a hold of me or connect with me or work with me. Um, because, right, yeah, that's the only way that I'm sort of, you can reach me right now is I'm going to create this web page, this page on my website where you can reach out to me if you want to connect with me. I lead workshops using all the tools in my book. So if you're interested, you can, just leave your email address and I will get a hold of you and let you know when these workshops happen. They're in person, virtually over the phone in a group, in real time rather than than just a recording. I work with people one on one when they feel like they need to. Um, and I also teach classes. The last class I taught was on learning to make choices from love rather than fear, and it
Oh,
was
I
like
love
and
that.
Oh, it was awesome. It was an awesome class. It was like probably like 4 months long, and we met virtually um, twice a month, and it was lovely. So, yes, that's how they can reach me.
So beautiful. Eliora, everybody, on a Little Less Fear podcast. Her book, Drink from the Well, is available on Barnes& and Noble. It's available on Amazon and at your local bookstore. You can find more information at www.eliorasjourney.com. Thanks so much for sharing your incredible, beautiful wisdom light, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I had such a lovely time talking with you.
Absolutely. It's been an honor. Thank you.